Grab a nice drink and grab some snacks because this is going to be a good one. Welcome to Sim Lim Square Secret Shopper 2021. I went down to Sim Lim Square with one mission. I wanted to find out which were the good and which were the bad PC shops for building a PC with. What was the best experience and what was the worst experience out of all of the shops. So I went to every shop, asked them for a $1,500 gaming PC part list recommendation, and then rated them for their service, the quality of their part recommendations. Did they try to upsell me, sneak something in there, or were they missing something? And finally, I rated them for their price relative to each other. How aggressively priced were their parts. And well, the results are pretty interesting, so stay tuned. This video was very difficult to make, so if you really appreciate the effort, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and help this channel grow, because the bigger this channel is, the cooler the stuff I can do. I can make even cooler videos than this. Starting off with the service, most stops were reasonably helpful and reasonably friendly. There's two shops with a glaring issue. They were really dismissive about my budget. So the stipulation for this challenge was that I would go to each shop and ask for a 1,500 Singapore dollar gaming PC. And the only thing that I need from this PC, apart from the fact that it was a gaming PC, was that it had to have 16 gigs of RAM and a 500 gig power supply. However, this two shops, Fullwell and CyberMind, were extremely dismissive, almost completely unwilling to give me a PC part list at this price range. They were like, you can't get a gaming PC for this part range. Now, CyberMind, the moment they realized I could be semi-serious about building a PC at this budget, instantly changed and realized, okay, they shouldn't be so dismissive, they should actually help me. However, the staff over at Fullwell not only had to make me wait a long time because there was a long queue and it was a very busy shop full of people, was also extremely reluctant, extremely unwilling, and did the PC part list recommendation with a complete somber, pissed off look on his face, which really indicates to me he doesn't want to sell me a PC for this budget, which is kind of like what? It's both rude, condescending, and just discouraging to a beginner. If I was a beginner, chances are I'm going to be running a low budget like this $1,500 PC build was on. And as a result, the fact that you're just so willing to instantly turn me away and say it's impossible to build a gaming PC, which we both know is a lie, at this budget, it's just rude, condescending, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and it's, I think, a clear method of trying to make me spend more and get a more expensive rig. Apparently they have very good service according to many reviews online, but in this case I cannot say that that is true. In my personal experience, I can't say that that is true, because let's say if I worked really hard to get those $1,500, right, and I would instantly told that I can't get a gaming PC at all for that budget, I'm just gonna feel like my world shattered. So I think it's just not good service in general to be so dismissive. I just think it's a stupid business idea to only sell gaming PCs with bigger margins to higher end consumers, maybe buying $2,000, $3,000 PCs. Because $1,500 PC, a whole PC build, you're still gonna make good, healthy amount of profit from it. And your unwillingness to help me at all is just rude, condescending, and just looks and reflects bad on your shop in general. So yeah, that's why the scores are as such, and Fullwell gets extra minus points because they were so unwilling and so reluctant to give me a PC part list for that price, and I had to be insistent and be like, oh, I'm a 1080p gamer, I'm okay with low settings, before he was even willing to build me a PC or give me a PC part list. Big minus points for that. Now as for part recommendations, it gets even more interesting. Let's get into it. Starting off with Fullwell, the worst performing shop so far. The part list is okay, it's decent, it's passable. However, there are a few issues. So the CPU recommended was the i5-10400F. However, the i5-10400F does not come with a CPU cooler, which means when it's time to build the PC later on, they're gonna ask you to fork out extra money because they didn't include a cooler, and now you have to buy one, and then you have to pay even more than you expect to, which is something that I hate. I think you will too. Number two, the PC case included was a bit pricey. It was a Cooler Master ML370B, when a PC of this budget should be buying a Techware or a Gamix case that's like $50, $60, $70. Instead, a $100 case was recommended, which is a bit expensive for a PC in this budget, but apparently it was the cheapest they had on hand, so whatever, I'll give them a pass for that. Another issue is that they gave me the weakest CPU and GPU combination and yet still exceeded the budget. So out of all the PC stores, the weakest combination that was offered was the i5 and the 1660 Ti. Now, they aren't the only store to offer that, alright, and recommend that. However, they exceeded the budget even though they offered that particular combination. And like, what? I don't know, I have to dock points for that inevitably. So 6 out of 10. It could be worse, but it could be much better. The next PC store is TradePack. Now, they were much faster in giving me a price list and all that stuff, so they were clearly more prepared to sell a PC to someone at this $1,500 budget. And what they came out with was the most common combination. Ryzen 5 3600, 1660 Super, you can read it yourself. Props to them for keeping it well under budget, so that's totally respectable. With a cheaper PC case, cheaper motherboard, that's entirely good. They even gave a 16 gig Corsair RAM kit that had RGB, which is like pretty good for a PC in this price range, so that's nice. There are a few issues. So one of those things is that the PSU is a 650 watt 80 plus FSP one that they always try to sell anyone trying to build a budget or mid-range PC in Sim Lim Square at TradePack. Look, every single store except TradePack recommended the 650 watt 80 plus bronze silver stone power supply, one that has has pretty decent reviews for a budget power supply. FSP has good power supplies, but this is absolutely not one of those. And if you've been to TradePack in the last 3 or 4 years and you're trying to build a PC under $1,500 or $2,000, they always, and I say always with like hand on my heart, like honestly, they always recommend this power supply. Always. And the thing is, there is excess budget inside my budget to upgrade this power supply to the Silverstone one, which is infinitely better because it has good reviews, unlike this power supply that doesn't. But they didn't, which indicates to me that they really want to clear stock of it, which means they either have too much stock of it, or they have very big margins on this, or no one wants to buy them, so they try to sneak it into part list as often as they can, which kind of pisses me off because this is not a good power supply to begin with. They really shouldn't be selling it to begin with. Yeah, if you go to TradePack, pro tip, make sure you stop that 650 watt 80 plus FSP power supply that they recommend for something else, because it's really not a good choice. Another thing I didn't like about this PC part list was that they threw in a Wi-Fi card when I didn't ask for it. Like, if I asked for something, give me that. Don't give me more without asking me. I know there was excess budget, but the fact that you threw in a Wi-Fi card just to increase the price of it and maybe make an extra $20-30 when I didn't need a Wi-Fi card or didn't ask for it is just annoying. Just give me what I asked for. Stop trying to upsell. And that is a classic behavior of TradePack, by the way. I've been there so many times. It's always like this. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10 because of those two issues. At least it wasn't missing a CPU cooler. At least they were well within budget. And if you did a little bit of research, you will know to swap that power supply out and get rid of that Wi-Fi card that you didn't need, to maybe upgrade your GPU, upgrade your CPU cooler, upgrade your case, and depending on what you want, you can do all those things with the excess budget. So 7 out of 10. The next store that I'm talking about is Dynacore. So Dynacore is a little bit different. They're very similar to another company that starts with D and ends with Core. Oh yeah, Dreamcore. So they have pre-decided rigs in Dynacore and you can customize them to what you want. But they do have templates to choose from and it's like laid out in pictures and stuff. And you just kind of modify the preset rigs to fit your budget and your needs, which is good. I mean, it's much easier for a beginner to shop with them, to just buy PCs with them because of the pictures, because of the list, and it's much easier for them to give you recommendations. So I got very fast recommendation very quickly. Now, the part list recommended, well, it's up on the screen. It's very similar to the Fullwell one. Good CPU, good GPU, actually includes a CPU cooler, good power supply. Nothing wrong at all with this PC part list, so that's really nice. The only problem is that it's an i5 with a 1660 Ti, which is the weaker of the combinations offered. However, they were within budget, so can't fault them for that. There's just the pricing structure over there, so whatever. There's nothing wrong with this PC part list at all, so I'm giving them an 8 out of 10 because it was fast, easy, it was a good recommendation. Could always be better, but could be way worse. This is actually a pretty decent recommendation. Next up, VPCs. In 2 words, they were pretty decent. Similar to Dynacore, they have the same pre-listed combinations that you can customize, and I got a pretty decent rig for about 1560 roughly. Now, I'm not going to dog them for exceeding my budget because in this particular case, them exceeding my budget was actually my fault. So the person there wanted to recommend a 1660 Ti. I just asked for a 1660 Super recommendation just to see what the pricing would be like. Apparently, if I chose the 1660 Ti, it would be well within $1,500. So what they wanted to recommend me initially was fine. The exceeding the budget is my bad. So I'm not going to dog them for that. Apart from that, yeah, they're just like Dynacore. They have preset lists that you modify slightly to fit your needs and fit your budget. And it's really easy to choose for them. Good part list. They didn't miss out on anything. All the parts, power supply, everything included was good quality, so good. After that, we have Make Fine PCs. So now this one, I have no result for it because they just straight up told me they didn't have the parts for a PC built in my price range. And that's fine because they weren't being dismissive. They just said, we don't have i5s, we don't have Ryzen 5s, we don't have Ryzen 3s or i3s in stock, which means we don't have a CPU that will fit your budget. And they were honest because they were just out of stock. They weren't dismissive and just not trying to sell me stuff even though they have stock. Unlike Fullwell, unlike CyberMind. So I can't give them a score for this because they didn't give me a part list, but I also can't dock points for them because they were just being honest. Next up, CityZone. They have a pretty standard recommendation list, but a few issues are notable. For one is the SSD that they try to sell me. So every PC stock in Sim Lim Square tries to sell you a different SSD because they kind of have deals with these brands to be their distributor, or they buy it in bulk and something is like cheaper so they get more margins with it. This shop in particular had an SSD from a brand called Hikvision, H-I-K. I have no idea what this brand is, but looking it up, it is a brand that's very new to the SSD scene. So they've been around in the surveillance, camera, CCTV world scene for a while now. They're from China, where there are a lot of CCTVs because Big Brother's always watching. But they've been around in the CCTV scene for a while now, but they only recently started making SSDs, which means the SSD being offered had no reviews, no information at all. So I have no idea if that SSD even has DRAM. And I think for a consumer, that makes no sense to buy because it's only $10-15 cheaper than the Crucial Transcend A-Data options, which we know are from reliable brands, and at least have reviews and have information on them, which means it's going to be a much safer, better buy to get those, because SSDs are going to store your precious memories. You're going to store your photos and videos on there, and if you get an SSD that's wonky and it fails on you and you lose all your pictures that's precious to you, there's not going to be a good situation for anyone. So this SSD recommendation was very problematic. Another thing that was problematic about this PC part list recommended was the RAM. So the RAM recommended was a single stick of crucial unmarked, bare bones RAM. Nothing wrong with bare bones RAM if it saves me a buck. However, this is a single stick of 16 gigabytes, which means non-dual channel on a Ryzen 5 3600 CPU PC. Like, that is problematic. The part list was already well within budget. There was excess budget, and this guy could have sold me a dual channel RAM kit, which would have given me 15, 20, 30% of performance on my Ryzen CPU for basically $15 extra, which would have still made the PC well within budget, but he didn't add it in anyway, which indicates to me he was trying to sell the stock of that 16 gig RAM that no one wanted to buy because it was just one stick. And also, I think it's just a big problem because for a beginner who doesn't realize the importance of dual channel RAM with their Ryzen PC, what's going to end up happening is they're going to end up saving that $15 initially, sure, but losing out on performance that is almost free because it's only $10, $15 extra to get a dual channel kit. Now, I asked for a swap of the RAM and it was still well within budget, so I have to dock points for that, for basically not recommending it because they wanted to clear stock of their single stick 16 gig RAM, which is problematic. The extra space in the budget, they could have put dual channel RAM in there for me. Didn't, just because they want to sell that single stick of RAM that nobody wants to buy. Why? Because nobody wants single channel. It's 2021. So in conclusion then, they're getting 6 out of 10 because of those two glaring issues. Not very good at all. Next up is best price PCs. Now this one, I'm going to void the results straight up, not because they were bad, but because I feel like there was preferential treatment. So my cameraman for the day is a bit new to the whole cameraman thing, and he was not sneaky at all when filming the shop and filming me in the shop. So as a result, the store owner was very, very friendly, very obviously. He knew something was up. He knew we were filming something, and I really strongly feel there was preferential treatment. I mean, if you look at the PC list that they gave me and the prices that they gave me at, you will agree, like an AOR's motherboard and a 1660 Super and a Ryzen 5 3600, well within $1,500. I know they're called best price PCs, but I don't think that's possible. And I think that there was severe preferential treatment here, so I have to void that result. And I say, take this part list with a grain of salt. But apart from that, everything recommended was good. Good case, power supply, 1660 Super, nothing wrong, except for the fact that this result cannot be taken seriously because chances are, if you don't have a camera, you don't have influencer privileges, and he's going to give you, an average consumer price, which would probably not be this good. However, if you can match this part list, if you show this video to him and he can match this part list, and you can get a PC for exactly the price that he gave me, buy it. I think it's a good deal. Finally, CyberMind PC. So this one was another one of the shops that was initially dismissive, but thankfully, unlike Fullwell, CyberMind was quick to change their opinion of me once they realized I was semi-serious about getting a part list. The part selection was standard, it was normal, and there was nothing wrong with it, except for one issue. They recommended single channel RAM for a Ryzen rig once again. Now, they did point it out and they didn't try to hide it, unlike the other shop. When you recommend a Ryzen PC to someone, it's just simply a grave mistake to go single channel. You lose out on so much cheap performance and they exceeded the budget. So 7 out of 10. One interesting thing about CyberMind is that he was telling me that Ryzen CPUs run hotter than an Intel chip. I have no idea how true that is, but the fact that he was willing to give out tech advice to people based on anecdotal evidence from one of his customers saying that the Ryzen chips run hotter, I think it's a bit problematic because you didn't run benchmark, you didn't do a large scale test. So the fact that you just came along and told me that Ryzen chips run hotter based off one customer's feedback who might not even have set up their PC properly, yeah, I did stick to selling PCs. Not tech advice, especially if you don't have concrete evidence. I just think it's not fair to any PC company that you're trying to sell the parts of by using anecdotal evidence like that. Whatever. It did exceed the budget though, so yeah, that's why the score isn't that high. Now let's talk about pricing. So this is a bit more complicated. Pricing in Sim Lim Square is really weird as they're always fluctuating and inconsistent. So it depends day to day where you can get the best deal. So you make sure you do your research and price match. However, TradePack is the clear winner here. Now, best price PCs will be in the running, but I highly suspect preferential treatment, so I can't include them in the conversation. But TradePack has the best prices. However, the other shops are not that far behind, and with a little bit of bargaining, they generally can match TradePack. They're only $20, $30, $40, $50 behind in terms of like what they could offer in terms of pricing, and generally with a good amount of bargaining and a good amount of conversational skills, you generally can get that price down to match TradePack's level. So it's kind of an open field. Most shops should be able to give you very similar pricing. There is, however, one shop that I found particularly expensive, and that is Fullwell. They gave me the weakest combination of an i5 with a 6060 Ti without a CPU cooler, and yet they were one of the most expensive recommended PC part list out of all of them, which really indicates to me that they are one of the most priciest shops compared to the rest, which is like, so what are you exactly bringing to the table then? And actually that's quite a surprise to me because I didn't expect Fullwell to be the worst performer in both pricing and service because they were dismissive and they also were the most expensive. Like, so what exactly is the reason so many people are queuing up to buy PCs from your shop? Like, why exactly is your shop so busy? And I'm not trashing them because someone is paying me or sponsoring me. I literally don't have a single sponsor. I don't care. I'm just speaking from my honest experience, what I saw, what I experienced, and Fullwell just... So yeah, if you go to TradePack, you're more likely to get a better price than the other shops, at least from this experience. However, do look out for the fact that TradePack tends to upsell you, try to sneak cheaper parts into your PC build, and try to get stuff past you and try to hustle you a little bit. So if you want to shop at TradePack, you need to have done your research. You need to make sure you know what's going on because they're not going to be as friendly as the other shop because they're just ruthlessly efficient at trying to do business and getting things done. So make sure you do your research and be prepared to do some bargaining back and forth because that's the only way you can get a really good deal at TradePack, by being prepared. So there's that. Anyway, I guess it's conclusion time then. And the thing is, the truth is, there are a lot of factors that affect price at Sim Lim Square, like from the seller's mood to his business that day to, you know, the stock coming in, to what time it is of the day, like do they want to knock off very soon, or to whether they're over and under ordered in terms of the supplies. Like all this creates a very busy, messy, confusing buyer's experience. And I think from this whole secret shopper situation, you will realize that, yeah, it's kind of a mess to shop at Sim Lim Square. So the question is then, should you buy from Sim Lim Square? And if so, which shop should you buy from? Well, it's actually a difficult question to answer because one of its biggest problems, Sim Lim Square's problems, is that it's volatile and a mess. But that volatility and chaos is also one of its biggest strengths. It's an entertainment factor, and it's also kind of more likely to finesse an amazing deal factor. Because prices are volatile and all over the place in Sim Lim Square, you have a better chance of getting a deal because you're bargaining with like a shop, a mom and pop shop, right? You're more likely to be able to bargain back and forth. They're more likely to be flexible to allow cheaper pricing for different things for you. So yes, Sim Lim Square is a bit more of a mess, but because it's messy, because it's flexible, because it's all over the place, you're more likely to be able to finesse a deal. So for someone who is willing to get their hands dirty, to go in there and try to get a deal, try to wrangle a deal, bargain something, get something really cheap, it might be a good idea to consider and go and check things out and see what you can get for your budget at Sim Lim Square. However, for a beginner or someone who is a bit intimidated with bargaining and back and forth, or someone who doesn't really care too much about saving $50, $60, $70 and is willing to spend the extra money for comfort, ease of access, or just simplicity and not having to deal with people, there are so many other options in Sim Lim Square because Sim Lim Square is clearly no longer king for PC building. There's just so many options, from Dreamcore to Aftershock to carousel builders. There are just so many choices that you can go for when you're building a PC in Singapore now as compared to last time, which means Sim Lim Square is not your only option and you can go with those if you are looking for less drama, less complication, and just a smoother, easier experience. Especially if you're not in it to build a PC, you're not in it to experience a tech mall, you're not in it to experience bargaining, you're just in it to get a gaming PC so you can game at home and have a good time and have fun. If you're that kind of buyer, then go and order online from these PC shops that have a lot more structure. But remember, structure comes with cost, and the lack of structure of Sim Lim Square is what allows you to finesse a deal sometimes, and that is also one of its biggest strengths. Also, I think it's really fun to build a PC at Sim Lim Square just because it's such a mess and all over the place, and like you have to bargain and price match. It's like a fun little day experience, and it's a good way to spend some time as well. So for me, I love it, but I think for a lot of people who don't want that complication, who don't want to deal with people because they're introverts, who don't want to have to bargain, who don't want to have to price research, who don't want to have to go to different shops and ask for discounts, order it online from a system integrator or like a boutique builder on Carousel, because it's going to be a much more satisfying experience to just have the PC show up at your doorstep and work fine. But anyway though, if you do seriously consider Sim Lim Square as an option for building a PC or your choice for building a PC, make sure you do your research. Price, PC knowledge, that is your absolute diamond armor against getting hustled and scammed or upsold or charged a bit too much. And it's also your magic key to unlock yourself a good deal. Like if they know you know what you're talking about, if they know you are someone who's confident in your PC knowledge, they will give you better prices because they know they can't get past you and they know you are someone who's shrewd and is prepared. And if you're prepared, they can sense it and they will be generally more willing to lower their prices more quickly because they realize the back and forth is a waste of time with you because you know what you're talking about. So research, do price matching, make sure you know the prices online, make sure you know prices locally, make sure you know the prices everywhere before you go there if you want to go Sim Lim Square to try a finagle deal. Because knowledge is power, especially when you're trying to shop at Sim Lim Square. So that's it, I guess, for this video. With that, Sim Lim Square Secret Shopper 2021 is complete. Now, this was a very fun video to make, but very difficult. I needed a cameraman, I needed to spend a whole day. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, all three, because that will help grow this channel severely in the algorithm. And by helping me grow this channel, I can make cooler things, I can do even cooler things, and maybe Logitech will sponsor me, even though I said G-Hub is bad. And more on that story in the future, but yeah, support this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching though. Hope you found it helpful or enjoyable. I think a lot of people will. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.